Hello. How about waiting? Is that something you like to do? Not me. Nobody wants to do it. And what happens when we decide we're just going to hurry and do things our own way? Well, we end up second best. Maybe we're like Abraham and Sarah who ended up with an Ishmael. Maybe you're one of those people that just likes to hurry up and go down the road and end up with a second best speeding ticket. Or perhaps you're like David today. David did not like waiting to be king. He wanted to just hurry it up. That's why Psalms 13, he says, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me? Forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long will my enemy be exalted over me?" David was tired of waiting to be king. He had been anointed king of Israel at least 15 years ago. In 1 Samuel 16, God told Samuel, "How long will you continue to mourn over Saul, seeing that I have rejected him from being king? Go to Jesse the Bethlehemite and anoint one of his sons." So Samuel takes off, he gets his oil, he gets his horn, and he goes and he anoints David, who is just a young boy. And it says immediately the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. Well, he's been waiting those 15 years or more to be anointed king, running from King Saul, hiding out with the Philistines. And one day he gets the message from the Amalekite after the battle that Israel had with the Philistines. The Amalekite came to him saying, "King Saul and Jonathan are dead, and I have brought you the crown of King Saul." Took it right off his head. Oh, wow. David, who has been anointed king, now has the crown, and the king is dead. You know, if you'd been waiting that long, what would you do? How would you respond now that the kingdom might finally be in your grasp? Well, David did what just came naturally to him. 2 Samuel 2:1 says, it happened after this, after the death of King Saul, that David inquired of the Lord and said, "Shall I go up to Judah?" And the Lord said, "Yes, go ahead." And so David says, "What city shall I go to?" And the Lord told him to go to Hebron. So as anxious as David had been to get his destiny, to move on with life, he first took time to inquire of the Lord. He did what had become a habit to him. After that, David packed up his wives, took all his men, all their families, and he moved to the cities in Hebron. Oh, but only if David had continued to be just that patient after he made the move. You see, verse 4 tells us that after he gets there, the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Israel, over the house of Judah. He's now the king of Judah. Good? No. Not at all. This is second best. David was never called, never anointed to be the king of Judah. He was anointed and called to be the king of Israel. Judah was poor and insignificant. It was a weak tribe at the time, and it was not even a nation. So, just because someone offers us something does not mean that we have to accept it. Even if you have been waiting for years for your opportunity, for your destiny to be fulfilled, it does not mean that this is the right time for you, that this is the right place. David had an army of 340,000. I mean, that was as many or more than that city of Hebron where he was. He did not have to accept something that small, but he accepted it and became the king of the house of Judah, not the nation, but a house. And you might think, well, that's not so bad. But we have to realize when we do things that are second best, we're not just setting ourselves up for failure, but we're also affecting our future. If you read the Bible and you go on to 2 Kings or Chronicles, you'll see that there's a lot of talk, and even in the prophets, about the divided kingdom, about the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah, and how the nation became divided. And we can say that it all started with Rehoboam and Jeroboam, when they became the two kings and the nation split after Solomon. Well, they may have made the title of being the first kings there, but actually David was the one that created it. He created it when he became the king of the house of Judah. So he was a king now, but somebody else got the real prize. The real prize was Israel. And what was going on at that very same time, and actually it probably took place a little bit longer. It says in verse 8, But Adam the son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth the son of Saul, and he made him king over Gilead, the Asherites, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, and over all of Israel. You know, to make things worse, what was happening in David's life was Abner, who had been Saul's commander, hated him. And his life goal had been to kill David. And what did he do? He put Saul's worthless but only remaining son in as king. Israel was an important nation. It was rich, and it was strong, important, and it was well known. Abner could have promoted David to the position of king if he had wanted to, and he could have formed a very profitable alliance and made himself a title. But he wanted to prevent David from becoming king and fulfilling his destiny, even though he knew that this was what God had planned for him. Ishbosheth was appointed king, but not until after David had accepted the title as king of Judah. So just think, suppose David had waited. Suppose David had decided not to accept the title of Judah, being king just over a small house, but he had waited for God's best because he knew from the get-go God anointed him over Israel. If he had waited, this delay never would have taken place. You see, Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 70 years old when he began to reign. And what was going on during that time? Only the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7.5 years. 7.5 years of living in second best. Ishbosheth's reign and Abner's plan did nothing but delay God's best for David. David was withheld from his destiny because he decided to go with second best. God's plan for our life can be put on pause or even stop just because we form relationships with people that are not the best. So David's in second best. He came in second, and nobody wants to be a runner-up. And a lot of times when we realize we're in that runner-up position, when we realize that we're in second place, that we've lost the prize, it's easy just to give up and just to stop. But that's not what David did. David was a man of integrity. And so even though he was in second place, he proudly accepted Judah and became its king. He accepted the small place until Israel became available. He accepted what Judah had to offer, and he made the best of it. He raised Judah to a place of importance because he had stooped to accept it. David learned that the way he behaved in Judah would ultimately affect the way that he would be in Jerusalem. So he was acting while king of Judah the way that he would someday act when he was king over all of Israel, because he knew what we all need to learn. You will be in your destiny what you are on your way to it. You will be in the great place what you are in the small place. So we need to develop character and work habits for where we want to be, and not just look at the fact that, oh, I've made a mess of things. I don't know how am I ever going to get out of this? What can God do with me now? No. Start building on your failure. Start moving forward the way David did, and know that God still has a promise, that his promises are yea and amen, and his gifts and his callings he does not take back. And so David knew that. And during the 7.5 years that David is king, there's a long, drawn-out civil war between Israel and Judah. And during that time, Abner, the commander of Saul's army, who now, even though Saul's dead, that's how it's still known, he was strengthening his hold on the house of Saul, on the nation of Israel. You see, after Saul's death, Abner is David's worst enemy, and he took advantage of the war to do everything he could to stop David. But during this time, the house of David is getting stronger. And Abner realizes Ishbosheth is not taking us anywhere. I think I need to be king. And he made a play for the throne by taking Saul's concubine. Well, Ishbosheth the king reprimanded him from that and said, hey, who do you think you are? I know what you're trying to do. Abner became furious and told Ishbosheth, I put you here and I can take you down. And he defected to David. He went to David and he told David, I will come to you and I will bring all of Israel with me. He said, I have the ability to do this. David accepted his enemy's request, and he forgave him right on the spot of everything that had happened in the past. He was willing to put the past behind him and move forward for the good of the nation of Israel. Oh, wow, what a wonderful, powerful lesson for us to be willing to put our past and our hurts behind us for the good of God's plan, for the good of God's people. And so David said, yes, I will form that covenant. But before the covenant could be put in place, without knowing it, Joab, who was David's commander-in-chief, killed Abner. Now, he did this out of revenge because Abner had killed Joab's brother in self-defense. So the covenant seemed like it was all over. There was nothing else that David could do now except be king of Judah, because there was still one obstacle standing in his way, and that was Ishbosheth, the second king of Israel. Well, two of Ishbosheth's chief leaders decided that they were going to rebel, and these two rebel captains went into Ishbosheth in the middle of the night, went into his bedroom while he was asleep and cut off his head. And they, just like David went around carrying the head of Goliath, these rebel guys came to David with Ishbosheth's head and said, look what we have for you. Well, we know David's character, and it should not surprise us at all that David killed those two men and still stayed king of Judah. He knew where he was at the time, and he was not going to try and grasp it away. With Ishbosheth's death, though, the northern tribes realized, we don't have anyone else to be king. There's no viable candidate left. Ishabeth's gone. Joab's gone. What do we do? So they all decided they wanted David to reign over all of Israel. And they came to him and they gave him 3 reasons in verses 1 and 2 of chapter 5. They said that he was their bone and their flesh. That means you're our relative. And you're a successful leader. We've been following your record. You're a winner. And everybody wants to be part of a winner. But the 3rd reason was the most important. They said, we know that the Lord has promised you to be the ruler of all Israel. They knew, even while Saul was reigning. They knew while Joab and Ishabeth was in control. They knew when David took 2nd place and went over the house of Judah that David had been called by God, had been anointed by him to be ruler over the entire house. And they all came to him to Hebron, and they anointed him king of Israel there. Finally, David is king over all Judah and all Israel. This is God's best. And when David had his relationships in place, when he was right with God, when he was right with the people of Israel, after he had forgiven Joab and forgotten what he had done to him and how he had hurt him, his relationship was in place, and now God brought David's destiny to him. He did not have to go out searching. Oh, what a wonderful story to know that we don't have to search. We don't have to try. We don't have to contend for second best. It's a great lesson to learn. But for David, it was a lifelong lesson. It didn't stop there. No sooner was he anointed king than he had a chance to prove if he had learned this lesson about hurry up and settled for second best. You see, he decided that he was going to move the kingdom to Jerusalem, and he was going to set up his throne and reign from there. But when he arrived in Jerusalem, he found that the city was already occupied by the enemy Jebusites. Now, these guys had been in power ever since the days of Joshua. Judges tells us that Benjamin and Judah, those 2 tribes, fought against the Jebusites, but they could not take the city back. And so it had remained in control of the Jebusites, the Canaanites, until the day of David. And the people there, they felt really secure because all around Jerusalem, which is up high on the mountain, there are all these deep gorges, and they knew that nobody could get to them. At least that's what they thought. And so they taunted David with, "We will keep you away using our blind and our lame." Oh, perhaps this taunt was a reminder of what happened when his brother Eliab spoke to him when he went out to battle Goliath. And Eliab says, "And with whom have you left those few sheep?" And it just embarrassed and went to the very core of David and who he was. And perhaps hearing this taunt of, "We'll keep you away with the blind and the lame," did the same thing to him. We don't know what he was thinking, but he certainly was not thinking about Joab. Remember Joab, his commander who had killed Abner in revenge? When that happened, David immediately fired him and said, "You're no longer going to have a place in my army." But David's in a hurry. He wants to get it done now. He wants to take the city, and he wants to do it now because that's what he wants. And he feels that that's what God wants for him. And so he makes a very rash declaration without thinking of the consequences. 1 Chronicles 11:6 tells us, David says, "Whoever attacks the Jebusites first shall be the chief and the captain." David says, "I don't care who it is. Anybody that's strong enough to take this city, they're going to be my captain." And what happened? It says, "And Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went up first, and he became his chief." David made a quick promise, and Joab was rewarded by becoming his chief commander again. Now, this rash decision was second best. David never intended for Joab to have that position again. It was not something that made God happy either. You see, Joab was reinstated, but this rash decision was second best, and it followed David till the day he died. Even on his deathbed, he was regretting the decision that he had made of giving Joab that power again. Hurry up and settle for second best. It was an ongoing problem for David, one that started for him way back before he became king, and it followed him till the end of his life. Settling for second best, hurry up and get away from Saul. So let's run to Gath, second best. He's king. Oh, I want the ark to come back to Jerusalem. Oh, that's going to make God so happy. Let's hurry up and do it. He didn't follow protocol. Second best. Oh, we all know the story about Bathsheba. He wanted that, and he wanted that in a hurry. Second best with all of those consequences. Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, his dearest friend. He'd given him land. He'd given him property. But without thinking and in a hurry to settle things with Mephibosheth's servant Ziba, he took away the property and gave it right back. Second best. And he ends his life wanting to do something and not even listening to the counsel, and took a census of the people of the Israelites. Second best, because David wanted to serve God, but he wanted to do it quickly. He wanted to do it his way. And every time that he did it his way without consulting God, without saying, should I be king of the house of Judah? Should I put Joab back in? Should I take Bathsheba? Every time he settled for second best. Let me encourage you. No matter how urgent things might seem, don't settle. Don't get in a rush that will involve other people. And say, I'm not going to settle for second best, but I'm going to wait a little bit longer. And because I know God has a plan for me, and I want his best in my life.